Hello, yat esh ejer lilianisha, touchy ni nisla, sedjikene bushishi, touchy ni dashajedoa, tabahan dashanella. Good afternoon, evening, morning, however, whenever you're watching this. My name is J.R. Lilly, part of the Red Runs Water people, born for the cliff dwelling people, and I am your EPAP advocate. So we're making this video today to just share a little bit more about our new grant opportunity, the Community Support Fund by the East Portland Action Plan. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the points about this. If you haven't been to the training sessions that we offered, just know that you can follow up with me anytime. I would love to see your application before you submit it, give a few thoughts to it, or help you talk through some ideas or help structure it in a good way. We're making this video for you. We're just going to post it online so folks have it available. Before I, 1 minute. So this isn't going to be professionally done or anything. It's kind of just me recording on my computer, which is, hey, you can get the information. And so I want to start off with a land acknowledgement, because that's always a good thing to honor and acknowledge folks who land in which we have traditionally been here. So let's think about this as consciously we move forward before our process, because the Portland metro area resides on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, the Wasco, Cowlitz, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tuala, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River, creating communities and summer encampments to harvest and use the plentiful natural resources in this area. Very thankful to those tribes and their descendants today, as well as the thriving urban community who continues to uplift traditional knowledge and space and all the things that we do. Wahoo, thank you. So I'm just going to dive right into the presentation, because that's probably why you're watching this video. Let's see. Here we are. All righty. So the East Portland Action Plan. We can talk more about what that is. Essentially, we're an advocacy group in East Portland, sponsored by the city, advocating to make sure East Portland is livable and better for everyone, because we're severely underinvested compared to the rest of the city. So the city has this plan, and we're moving forward in it. So we have a grants program where we give away half of our budget to help the community, have community organizations and community groups help us accomplish the action plan items. If you're familiar with our grant program, we have the 2021 award, grants have already been awarded. So the 2022 grant applications will be due this fall, 2021. So just note that if you're planning for projects for next year. Grants are going to, those grants include our general grant, our civic engagement grant that are around culture and language issues, as well as our municipal partnership grants. And that's there. But today we want to talk about this fourth pot of money called the Community Support Fund, which is a little bit different than our normal grant routine if you've been in that process. This was designed essentially so that we can help the community a little bit more easier and respond to some of the pandemic needs that have been created. So there are two buckets of projects in which we look at here. The first part, supporting basic community needs and essential services, things like medical assistance, food and housing related services, transportation, mobility assistance, support services for the most vulnerable. This can cover a lot of different projects. So, and left intentionally vague so that we kind of cover a lot of different things that we want folks to be doing. And then the other part is supporting healthy community relationships by creating and maintaining social connections. We all know social distancing and just, being in a pandemic, we're not out as we normally are, but how do we maintain community? Some of our celebrations, some of our cultural events, how do we continue? We want to help. So um, we want support for groups who need assistance in communicating with community members or developing methods for existing community to maintain and connect during social distancing. So if your project is one of those two things, it probably qualifies for this. So just note that we love organizations, but we're about funding projects. So your organization is doing a lot of different things. Great. Pick one project or pick two projects and apply for this funding. We can hopefully support with what you're doing. Timeline, which is important. So there were 2 rounds for this community support fund. This is we're going to talk about the next round, because the second round, because that's going to be the one that's due next, which is Monday, April 5th, before midnight. So email to me before midnight. Decision date, we'll let you know by April 26th. So this grant period is from May 1 this year, 2001, to April 30th next year. So that's an important time. That's the grant period where these projects have to be taking place. So if the project is happening within that time frame, this is the grant project you want to apply for. And then once you get approved and funded and everything, that's when we'll talk about like how long it takes for you to get your money to you. We'll cover that in this presentation. So the process, essentially, you're sending your applications to me. I put it all together. We have a grant review committee who reviews these applications, takes a look at them, and scores them according to a rubric. That rubric is included in the application, and the committee gets together. And these are, just so you know, it's a group of your own community members. This isn't like a highly advanced selection committee that knows all the fancy words or anything, acronyms. These are community members that live and work in the neighborhood just like you do. So you're working in East Portland, you want to do a project, they're probably familiar with the folks you're wanting to work with, as well as where you wanted to do it. So these are also advocates for East Portland. They want to see what's best for East. So know that these are community of your peers. Not going to be too complicated in that. So a few things I want to note here. One, all this information is included in the application. The PowerPoint is actually on our website as well. So you can download it there and take a look at it and review this. And you can just fast forward through this part if you already know this, which is fine. The important thing we want to know, the grants review committee will collectively decide on which projects to fund and announce awardees. So if you know anything about East Portland Action Plan, we operate by consensus. So everyone has to agree in order for us to move forward on something. It's no different in this grant program. We are going to operate by our consensus model in order to move forward. So just note that. Yeah. And then I will be your grants manager once you get awarded. So eligibility, here are the things you need to know if what will qualify for this award. One, it meets one of those 2 requirements we talked about earlier, essential services or healthy community connections. These are to assist with community members living in the East Portland area. So East Portland is actually defined specifically by the city of Portland, the East Portland Community Office Coalition District. So the 13 neighborhoods in East Portland is what we're talking about here. A lot of folks got questions sometimes about, well, if I have a program, say I'm serving after school lunches to kids after school, and one of them technically lives isn't in East Portland, he lives across the street. Does that mean he doesn't get a lunch too? Here's what we'll say. If your project, funds that you're asking for, these are to benefit East Portland residents. If it doesn't, having more outside folks or non-East Portland folks participate in the program, it doesn't add any additional cost. We're fine with that. We're also hoping that you have some leverage funds, some other funding that's helping about this project. So if you're serving 15 kids, $1,000, is helping provide for the 10 kids that are from East Portland, and you have $5,000 from other funds, from other programs or another grant opportunity that's helping provide this funds, that kind of like balances out. So it shows like it's proportionate to the East Portland residents. So keep that in mind. We're not going to be a stickler about it. In your application, focus on the East Portland participants you will be serving. Talk about how in your report afterwards, how you serve them, and we're going to be all good with that. We're not going to ask you to turn in any kind of verification forms or anything like that. So all we want to know is about the folks you're going to be serving in East Portland. That's who we want to help. You have to execute all the activities within the project timeline period. So just know that May 1st to April next year, everything's got to be done. You got to spend all your money during that time. Be supported by an existing 501c3 organization or have a fiscal sponsor. So a fiscal sponsor will be your partnership in this. They just made partnership maybe just to handle the money and receive and distribute the grant funds. So you have to have a 501c3. You can't, a business organization or a volunteer group or an individual can't apply. We're only accepting applications from 501c3 nonprofit organizations. If you need help with a fiscal sponsor, this is probably like the hardest thing most of our community members have a hurdle for most of us to wrestle with. So that's probably the first thing. If you're not a 501c3, you should be finding one. We can make some recommendations, but ultimately, just like all the other elements of your project, that's a job that's the application, the applicant's responsibility. So just note that if you are a 501c3, you are an organization that can be set up as a vendor, but this is a City of Portland grant funds. So we do have to abide by those regulations as well, which includes just making sure you can be set up as a vendor. We also encourage, if you're just newly formed, there is no we have to be in existence for 6 months or so. We're good. Shows you as long as you're a 501c3, and we can give you the IRS says we can transfer funds from our bank to yours. We're good. So we encourage you to apply. And just note, if during this year, if you've received funds from an EPAP grant that doesn't disqualify you, you're allowed to apply again through this. So feel free to apply. And you can also apply for multiple projects. You don't have to just apply for one. You can do 2 or 3. Not all of them will be awarded. Every application will be judged and weighed on its own merits. It won't be like, oh, well, we've already given this person 2 grants. We're not going to give it. That won't affect our decision-making process. You got a good project. You make a good case here, and everything lines up in your budget, and we have the funds to pay for it. We'll do our best to make it happen. So just note that. Because this is going to be a city grant, we have some insurance requirements here. There's sort of 3 tiers that we have to take a look at. One is if you're just purchasing items, say if you have a food bank and you're just looking to restock it, or you have an after-school program and you just need computers, so you're just looking to buy equipment, just equipment. That's the project. Your organization may do other things, but this project you're applying for is just to buy the equipment for these programs. Um, Great. There's insurance can definitely be waived for that. But if there's any amount of community engagement, you're going to be talking with somebody, you're going to have clients, you're going to be, that requires a level of another step of insurance where you're going to have to take some liability with in that. So we can cover that once you get approved. We're not asking for insurance to be approved ahead of time. That's just something you want. If you want more details on that, give me a call. If you want your insurance person to talk to me, and then we can know like, oh, if that, the insurance you have right now that actually qualifies and you're good, or it's like, no, you need a little bit more insurance on these areas, and then that increase, you could just work that into your budget process if you like. Um, so that's the second level, any kind of community engagement. And then the third level, if you're transporting anyone in your car, you will need some car insurance. So we'll talk about it. If you're not transporting anyone, if your program is like, clients will transport themselves to this area, but we'll give them some bus passes or some support for transportation, that's fine. And you can work those elements into the budget. But if you are going to be transporting folks, there's another level of insurance we'll be asking for. But if you're not transporting anyone, that part can be waived. So just note that. Funds may not be used for costs that are incurring in preparing this application. If you're hiring a grant writer, that's not going to, that doesn't qualify because also it's out of the grant period. We are having a max of 7% admin fees for this because we want all the money, as much of the money as possible, to go towards helping the project happen. Scholarships, loans, direct grants that redistribute the funds that we're giving you to other folks, that's something that the community doesn't want to be really involved with because it's an extra layer of engagement and everything. So we just want, tell us what your project is and we'll fund the project. No loans or debt retirement for the organization, no expenses incurred outside the grant period, no activities are held outside the boundaries of the EPAP service area. There may be some exceptions where if the particular service does not exist within East Portland, a good example is a youth program over the summer where we're helping fund the youth program needs, but at the end, the incentive is they're going to take a trip to the Oregon Zoo. Well, we don't have a zoo in East Portland as much as we would like. So like, okay, it's benefiting East Portland residents, and they're taking activity and outside of the zoo, and that's not the entirety of their grant project, but that's part of it. Most of the time they're going to be here in East Portland. So that makes a good case for it. If you want to know more about that, we can follow up on it. I'll let you know what the committee would think about it. Yeah. You want to make sure you're using appropriate language and translation services. This is just that to prevent somebody like, oh, my cousin took Spanish 2 years in high school, he can help us translate. No, the community that you'll be working with deserves appropriate translation services. So we want to make sure you're working with somebody that was appropriate for the community you're serving. And then no organization startup costs. We want to definitely work on projects that are going to be helping people. So this is project specific, not supporting existing organizations to keep doing existing organization stuff. Not there's anything wrong with that, just not a fit for this project and the scope. The reporting requirements. Once you get a grant, it's pretty simple. We have there's going to be two things we're going to ask for. One, we're going to ask for a budget report form that says you spent the money according to what you said it was going to be. We understand if there might be adjustments, we can cross that bridge when we get there, but it's a simple form you fill out, say we spent the money according to the budget we submitted. And then we ask for you to hold on to receipts for up to 3 years in case our program is ever audited. we'll ask you to produce those receipts and everything. So an expense reform, as well as a narrative, no more than 3 pages. We want you to help us tell us what you did. Summarize the success and the challenges. Include the details of impact, number of clients served. That's where you can provide like zip code information, number of gathering. Just tell us what happened, because we love to hear it. We love to hear and share and celebrate your success as well. We ask, if you have any photos you can share with us, that's great, but that is optional. We're not going to require you to have photos, send photos to us. So there is a lot of support for this. Trying to do our best to get it out, the information out as much as possible. This is in the application, this is in our website. We've been trying to shout it from the rooftops as much as we can. So one, there are normally the grant support sessions that we host in person, where we, folks can sign up, attend, and hear more about it, ask questions. You can also have individually just sign up with me, and let's go over your application. I can go over this whole presentation with you, and that's fine. One-on-one, let me know. Simple way, just send me an email. Let me know some times, and we can pick one, and let's talk about your application. This year, or this round, we're operating for this particular grant, we're offering something new, which is a re-review. So if you want to submit your grant to us ahead of time, folks who will be on the selection committee would gladly read your application and give some notes back. So just note about that. That's something we're offering. We are arriving closer to the deadline, so the sooner you can get that to us, the better. The more chance we have to give you time to make those revisions before you submit it. It does not guarantee an application reward, but I think it's a big benefit to you. Proposals may be submitted in any language. They can be handwritten as long as they're legible. And if you don't have a fiscal sponsor, talk to me and we'll see if we can work something out, but you need a fiscal sponsor by the time you apply. So there's 3 parts to this application. There is a cover page, there's the narrative, and then there's the budget. So we want to focus about your project. Tell us about your project. So we have funds, you have a project, you're asking for the funds, and you're going to give a justification for it. And this is what we're asking for. So it's a simple conversation. We don't want people to overthink it, because these things can, the anxiety can be driven high. I'm like, I've never written a budget before. I've never applied for a grant before. We like to think of processes fairly simple and manageable. Tell us what you want, and we'll see what we can do. So the application is there, but here are some of the sort of tips and tricks I would give folks. So when anyone asks me for suggestions, here's the things I say to them. Excuse me. So, because a lot of times somebody will write something very nice, and they'll think like, yes, this is a rabbit. They'll turn it in. The committee will read it and be like, no, this is a duck. What you're saying sometimes isn't always what we're reading. So here's some tips and tricks that we want you to consider while you're writing your application. So fill out the cover page. All the details in there, especially that nonprofit tax ID number. If you're using a fiscal sponsor, there's information below where you can fill that out. But fill this out. It's pretty simple. The narrative is going to be 5 parts, and we'll talk about some of those here shortly, and then we'll talk about the budget. So the narrative, first part is a project description. A lot of the applications that I read, the folks tend to spend too much time talking about the organization and what the organization does. That's great and that's wonderful, but I'm like, all right, get to the project already. What do you want to do? If you just put one line, say we are a nonprofit organization that's operates a food bank in East Portland. Cool. That's all I need to know about your organization. You can put a link in there that says we can learn more, but let me know about your project. That's what we really want to focus. So focus on the project. We want to restock our food pantry. We want to take kids on a hike in Powell Butte. We want to have art supply classes over Zoom for kids in elementary school. You know, let me know, talk about the project. If that's where you want to focus on. You also want to keep it simple. So don't feel like you need to use the latest lingo or complex terminology. Again, these are a committee of your peers. So feel free to just speak plain, and that's going to be fine. If you talk more fancy or less fancy, is it going to make your project more appealing? We want to know about the project. So do share the details. Like, we want to have an after school program. Cool. Where is the after school program going to be at? How many kids are going to be there? Who's going to be watching the kids? You're going to have snacks. How are you going to make the snacks? If it's just one person doing all of this, or is it like, do you have a team of volunteers? How is it going to work? Who's developing the curriculum? How do people learn about this, then sign up? So talk about the project as much as you can tell us would be very helpful. And keep in mind the reader. So when you bring something up, make sure you bring a close to it. So it's always helpful to, like, oh, I am helping youth, elders in this program, and the elders are going to be meeting here and here. But I was like, okay, you brought up youth and you just talk about elders for the rest of the program, and you kind of left me hanging there. So anything you bring up, make sure you bring it to a close. So the reader understands that. We're trying to peek inside your mind. If you just let us know and just communicate it, we're like, oh, okay, if we get what you're getting, that sounds like a great project. The second part is the needs assessment. Here's all I'll say about that. We all live in East Portland. We all know there's a lot of needs here. You don't have to do much convincing on the needs. Feel free to cite reports and let folks know, like, if you're like, there's a huge mental health crisis, or there's a problem with gang violence, or there's poverty, or the pandemic has like affected job opportunities, so folks are like not getting proper nutrition. These are all things we all know because we're here in East Portland too. So you don't have to do much convincing on that end, but you do want, we are asking, like, you to share a little bit about the need that you are addressing through this project. The third part is community involvement. And I bring this up because a lot of people, like, it seems a little weird. Like, what do you mean, like, community involvement? Essentially, these are your partners. We want to know who you're working with, because if it's going to be better programming. And we want you to work with other people who are doing something similar to you, to help you out in this, because that's going to ultimately benefit the community. So if you just list out the partners and tell them what they're doing, that's great. So EPCO, East Portland Community Office, they're providing space for the meeting. That's their partnership. You don't have to include an MOU or an email that proves this. You're just listing it and you're letting us know. That's great. And again, this is all a plan. If you the plan changes, that's okay. But right now, like, tell us the plan. Like, oh, you're partnering with EPCO to provide space. You're partnering with this organization that's going to provide food. You're talking with this organization to help, like, review your curriculum, talking to community leaders about recruitment, and they can help you out. So it doesn't have to be an organization. Could be just listing off community leaders and saying, like, what everyone's role will be in this. So just listing off those partners and how they will participate. That's simple enough. We really want to hear, especially if there's any technological support, areas where you're bringing in experts. So say if you want to provide health education, great. who's going to be giving the education? Is it just somebody's mom who's been feeding a bunch of kids? Has been, that's some good information, but we're talking about health and wellness. Um, a strong application would include like, oh, we're going to partner with the nutrition services, or we're partnering with these chefs or these cooks. Excuse me. Um, and so that would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. These are the people who are providing that technical service, and their certifications are here. And you don't have to list out their certification. You can be like, this is a um, youth or youth crime prevention person that works at this organization. Okay, credentials are there. It makes sense. So list those out. We think that partnerships are going to be your friend. More people helping out, the lighter the work is going to be. So don't think of something as that you have to do. This is something you get to do. It's like, oh, well, if I'm going to be providing an after school program, a lot of people can help you out with that, even if it's just simple like recruiting, spreading the word, reviewing your curriculum, or just like, how am I, you're going to talk to somebody before you actually do it. I'm talking to these 5 people just to make sure I know what I'm doing. They can cover my bases on stuff. So that's what we really want you to do, to be doing this, because if you're doing the work here, nothing's new under the sun, right? So odds are somebody is doing something similar. So if you are doing something and somebody's like, oh, we know there is different after school programs that exist within our area. But what makes ours unique, so you want to distinguish yourself from partners, is that maybe you're culturally specific. Maybe you're neighborhood specific, or maybe you're it's around music, something different. So look at what separates you from those partnering organizations, as well as like we want to make sure that the process isn't duplicating and you're not competing against each other's. Because if there's another project that's doing it, in a perfect world, we're like, oh, why can't you guys just work together on this? We know that might not be the case, but we're going to try. That's going to be our hope, at least. So tell us about your partners. The impact. This, just to be clear, tell us what you want to accomplish. And this can be very aspirational. This can be your hopes and dreams, but tell us and communicate in more specific details. So be genuine about who this work will impact. Don't feel like you need to stretch it out too much. It can be as simple as, we hope to provide 50 food boxes to 50 families living in the East Portland area. Great. That's a solid impact. Something that we like, oh, we're reducing poverty and combating hunger and education, providing educational nutrition to families in East Portland. That's pretty vague and didn't really tell us what you want to accomplish. Like, at the end of through these services, what exactly is going to be the impact? So let us know, and make sure that this is in line with everything else. You want your program description, the needs assessment, your partners you're working with to line up with how it's going to impact folks. So it should all be about, the program is an after-school program for youth. Youth are in need of an after-school program. We're partnering with other after-school programs, and we hope to have this 50 youth in our after-school program. It should all line up and be very clear. So by the time we're done reading this application, we know exactly what you're wanting to do. You also want to share the expectation of what you hope to accomplish. This is just a plan. This is just our hopes and aspiration. If you don't deliver, if you fail miserably at this, that's okay. But what was the goal? What was the thing you were after? That's the information we want to know. There's also an equity question, which I think is self-explanatory. How you is your program addressing some of these areas? The budget. This is a part people get really scared of, but talk to me. I love budgets, and hopefully this is something that's pretty simple. Excuse me. Because really, we just want you to give a list of your expenses. They don't need to all be in a nice category, all the same title, because we're not doing ratio analysis or anything. If you just list it, you opened up a Word document and start typing out everything that's going to be that you plan to spend money on. Cool. Turn that in. That's what we want here. If you go to our website, there is a budget template that's there. You're welcome to use it. If it's helpful, cool. But again, if you use the template or you just list things out, neither one of them is going to give you the edge you're looking for. If you, all we want you to do is clearly communicate to us what you plan to spend the money on. And the great thing about it is that, if you didn't get to fill in all the details in the narrative, the budget gets to help fill in some of those blanks. So here's my tips on the budget. You can use headline tools if they're necessary, but I don't think that you need to. You can just start listing things out, like I said. If you want to put them in categories and headlines, cool. But again, not needed. We're more interested on the detail, so better if you share it off with an example. We have an after-school program that had, why do you have $700 in the food budget? If you just put food, $700, that didn't make sense, because early on you said you were serving 10 teenagers. Well, I don't have a teenager, so I didn't know that teenagers eat a lot of food. And then that $700 was actually spread over 2 months, meaning once a month. So, when you start breaking it down like that, okay, now it makes sense why you're asking for $700 for food. Cool. So you want to give the details about it so it makes sense. Explain that out a little bit more. And these can be in bullet points, they can be in paragraphs, whatever is most helpful to you. Provide an explanation how you're going to use this item in your program, how helpful it be. So sometimes, if you're an outdoors person, you know all the cool outdoor things. I personally don't have any understanding of the outdoors, so I'm like, why do you need hiking boots? Can't folks just go out in their regular shoes? Okay. So it's an opportunity for you to share a little bit more about, we're going to use these hiking boots because the terrain is going to be easier to grip, and Oregon, it rains a lot. It's going to help them out in the mud, and there's all these reasons. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. The more explanations you can give to justify why you're spending these things the way you want to spend them, and it just helps me paint the picture. It helps you paint the picture so I can see what you're after a little bit better. Stipends. So here's where we run into a lot of things. If you just say $50 per person, we're gonna give them a stipend for participating in this program. That doesn't make as much sense to me. What we would like to hear is what is the what is the stipends for? Okay, we're not giving out meals or providing transportation costs, or we don't have childcare provided. So we're offering stipends to help lessen the burden of that to our participants for participating. It was in order to, participants will be doing a little bit extra work. They'll be engaged in a curriculum. They'll have to fill out worksheets. They'll have to do something and deliver something. Upon delivery of X, Y, and Z, then we want to provide, some kind of a stipend for their time. That makes sense. So understand, those are stipend stuff. A lot of, a lot of folks get mixed up between the difference between contract paid labor, stipends, and charging it to an existing employee's time. So you probably have should have some kind of discussion that with your finance person about the difference between those, um, because there are IRS regulations that are comply with that. You can't, um, in order for a volunteer to be considered a volunteer, they cannot be compensated more than $500 in a year for that. So otherwise, they turn into a some kind of a contract employee, and there's labor laws that are around that. So that's a conversation you need to have with your finance person, um, about that. So, but if you're charging a portion of your employee's time to this grant in your organization, okay, that makes more sense. That your finance person can work that out with you. Um, Long-term assets. We added this because, um, we were getting a lot of questions where people were buying really big stuff, but we never knew what they were doing with it afterwards. Um, so if you're going to purchase something with these funds, something big, let us know what's going to happen once the program is complete. So you're going to buy laptop computers so folks can participate in this after school program. Great. That sounds wonderful. What's going to happen to the laptops afterwards? So just provide a simple explanation, what they'll do. Example, they could be donated to the host nonprofit organization. They could be given away to community members or volunteers, or they could just even resold and the funds given to the host organization. Some of these ideas that could happen. Let us know. Keep in mind, um, there are, again, IRS rules around this that you want to consult with your finance person about, because technically the funds we are awarding to the fiscal sponsor, to the nonprofit organization entity, and the nonprofit entity is, then the ownership of everything it purchases. So what it does decide to do with that, you know there are probably some guidelines around that. This does include in-kind donations and everything like that. So you do want to understand those things. Consult with your, finance person. I'm also like would love to chat with you about those things because I'm a nerd in those things. So let me know. So the criteria at the end of it, you're going to submit this application, and this is the criteria where the committee members will look through the lens of this criteria and give you a score. Now, scores don't essentially guarantee funding, but this is the curriculum. This is the, criteria we'll be looking at, when we're funding or not funding applications that get submitted to us. So the answers are there for you. So if it's not within this curriculum, it's like, oh, I don't like this organization because their logo is blue. Well, we can't deny you on that because it's got to be in the curriculum. So nowhere in the curriculum says your logo has to be a certain color. So um, yeah, rest assured, when we're going through this process, this is the criteria we'll be looking at. So I'm sure you have some projects already in mind, but I just want to give you an example of what it might look like. So I have two examples, um, of what a project might look like. So let's say I have Native American songs in the park. There's a group of community volunteers. So we're using a fiscal sponsor since we're not a 501c3. I'm be the contact, and I put a quick summary in here, um, where we want to host a drum group in East Portland Parks 4 times this summer. This will include a community gathering element where families can share a meal, connect with resources, and a whole ceremony. All righty. Um, a narrative might be, these events will be host a socially distanced gathering for Native American community in East Portland Parks. Each event will be centered around the drum group, singing a few songs, a part of our spiritual and social traditions. At the event, we will share an important community information from our partner about resources, events, and open to the public and, highly advertised within the local Native American community. All right. So you've seen it's about the project. There's other things that we do, but this is a project we're asking funding for. So this is what we're letting you know. Letting you know our needs assessment, community event. We just listed off local organizations we're planning to partner with there. So I'm not at, there's no signed partnership agreements you need to submit with it. Just list them. we're taking it on good faith that you're doing the due diligence on that end. And then our goal is able to have 30 people at each gathering with 50 views online through social media. And then a budget, what it would look like. Again, you just need to list it out, and that makes clear for us. So we're asking for $3,000 because that's the max you can ask for. And you don't have to ask for the max, but in these examples, I am. So we're asking $2,000 for the drum group, and you see I use parentheses, $500 for 4 drum group, 1 in each gathering. So that $2,000 is broken down. It makes sense for me, and it's a contract for labor. And admin fee, advertising, and insurance costs, because I had a discussion with my fiscal sponsor, and they're like, well, we got to increase insurance for this project. Did the due diligence and figure out it's going to raise our insurance by $400. So I'm just going to bill it to the grant. And then, there's some park fees there. All right, so that's how I want to spend the $3,000. The in-kind support is going to be, we have volunteers that are helping organize this. So $25 an hour, 80 hours, $2,000. They're donating their time to this cause, volunteer organize, because none of us are going to get paid for organizing, just the drum groups. EPCO is going to help us out with sound equipment and chairs. So that's, that's an $800 figure. And the event MC, who normally gets paid, is going to volunteer their time. So they're contributing that too. So that's an in-kind donation to us. And we also have some partners that are leveraging these. If we are able to do this, you give us the $3,000. We can, Multnomah County said they'll provide up to $1,000 to help support with the food, some sack lunches for the drummers and the elders. And then NAA Youth Services, they'll handle the children's activity, which is about $1,200 for supplies and staff time partnership. And so they're leveraging, so it's not just EPAP that's funding this project alone. There's partners that are coming in and helping out. We're all going to make this happen. Cool. That's probably a solid application there. Let's look at another example. Restocking our East Portland Food Pantry, community East Portland Food Pantry. Sorry, a little tangled on words. And I just made all of this up, so don't think, apologize. I hope there's not a First Baptist Church Park Rose, but if there is, cool, love you. So we just want to restock the food pantry with basic items. Solid project, right? The details, our food pantry serves on an average of 800 to 1,000 families a month with basic food boxes. Families are located in the surrounding neighborhoods here in East Portland. Our project is to restock the food pantry with basic food items with non-perishable food items. Restock flour, rice, oil, beans, sugar, salt, and dry noodles. We talk about the needs assessment, how it's increased during the pandemic. We talked about we're receiving referrals from organizations like ERCO, NAO, the Rosewood, and other faith-based organizations. And the impact, we plan to support X number of families over the summer months. I'd probably fill that in and say 800 families. I didn't do the math on that, sorry. Then equity, we're talking, we plan to serve these many people traditionally come to our food bank, and that's who we want to serve. A budget. So we're asking for $3,000, and this is how it would, be broken down. So we're just buying food. We're just restocking. So there's the admin fee for the fiscal sponsor for the church that's doing this. And the rest of it is just going towards food. And you can see that we just plan to get $600, essentially between $490 and $600 a month to spend on food. And we'll just go and buy this to restock it each month and just bill it towards this grant. And the partners, we have volunteers, time for in-kind support, a use of space for the pantry the church is donating, as well as um, food donations and discounts from local food suppliers. So if I go to a grocery store, like grocery outlet in Park Rose, and they give me a 50% discount, that 50% discount is all added up here towards discount and other donations that we receive for food. Um, and then, there's donate time from the church services for upkeep of the pantry and staff time. Those kind of partnering and kind of support. Uh, and then we also have some other leverage funds because, it's like, oh, well, $3,000 isn't going to pay for all of this. Where do we get other funds for this? So we do get, we've got a $5,000 grant from MRG. And then the church also helps us with about $10,000 in matching funds for this project. All right. So the time, things will make, in the narrative, I didn't really talk about like a time frame, but in the budget, I explained that a little bit more in detail. So again, that opportunity to explain more of what you do. So hopefully, like at the end of that, you understand the project. So some examples we can give, and hopefully give you a little bit more picture of what we're looking for. Questions, you can email them, jr.lily, that's with 2 L's, the number 2, at portlandoregon.gov. Always email those to me. Wonderful. So I hope this video was helpful and helps you better paint a picture of what we're looking for. Again, I'd love it if you email me beforehand, say, hey, I'm thinking about this project, or if you want to just chat on the phone, be like, I want to see if I can frame this where we can have all the insurance waived and we're just buying supplies. How do I do that? How would I phrase that? Or I want to do this project. Or I'm thinking about these 2 projects, and I don't have time to write one. Like, what do you think? So yeah, I love to hear your questions. You can email me, call me, and let me know. I can't wait to hear and read about all the projects, and I hope that whatever work you're doing, whether we're able to fund it or not, keep doing the good work, because East Portland needs your work, your efforts. Thank you.